You see, Mark moves remarkably fast. Here we are into our second story of Jesus's ministry in the Galilee. And if you notice, we're still in chapter 1. We're only 30 verses in. So we have gone from Jesus's birth all the way to this moment, and he's fairly entrenched in his own sense of ministry and aware of what his call is. That's Mark, by the way. Mark moves very fast. I have here in my hand the Gospel of Mark, and I have underlined all the references to immediately. And when he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens being torn open. The Spirit immediately drove him into the wilderness. And immediately they left their nets and followed him. And immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee. And immediately there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And immediately he left the synagogue. And immediately they told him about Simon's mother-in-law. And then there's also an at once thrown in. So 7 immediatelys and 1 at once. There is an urgency in Mark's gospel that Jesus finds himself in. His work is now beginning to define itself, his mission becoming clear, and the press, the drumbeat is behind him. He is embarking on the salvation of the world. That's an awfully heavy task for a 30-year-old. And he will do it in 3 years. So he must move fast, or so it seems. He must keep up with the spirit of urgency, the tyranny of urgency. Immediately, Lord, immediately. And yet, where do we find him after he saves the life of Simon's mother-in-law? Mark says that early in the morning, he went out and he found a quiet place, and there he prayed. Remarkably, throughout this very brief, very active 3-year ministry of Jesus's, he finds plenty of time for prayer, plenty of time for quiet solitude, plenty of time of listening to his Father. Okay. And as that prayer, as he marinates himself in prayer, he becomes more aware of his own sense of purpose. I have 3 points for you today, and here's the first. Jesus makes time for prayer. He makes time for his Father to sit, not only to offer up his worries and concerns and litany of thanksgivings and petitions and all sorts of other things that we often fill our prayers with, but also to just be still and listen, for prayer to be a two-way street and to allow God, the Father, to have a few words. Jesus finds plenty of time for this, which is to suggest then for us that prayer is not something we do when we can find time, but rather prayer is a thing we do when we reorder time. It can fit into our busy schedules just as it does Jesus's. Mark says that he rose early in the morning, and we know that he's in Capernaum, which is on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. I love that land. It is my favorite place in the world. And recently, a couple years ago, I had a privilege and an opportunity to see it at night. After the tour buses had left, there is a calm stillness that comes over this place. There's not a lot of habitation there around Capernaum. It's pretty much the holy sites and farmland. And so if you can stand to be there at night, you can hear the silence of it, an occasional car passing by. Remarkably, the Sea of Galilee is shaped like a bowl, sort of wrapped on 3 sides with mountains. And if you catch that on a full moon, when the sky is clear, the moon reflects off the water, and the whole sea is aglow. The glow of that sea begins to radiate up the mountainside, and you could see it. You could see the whole Galilee illuminated by the full moon. I imagine that that's what Jesus saw when he set out early in the morning and found time for solitude and quiet. That glow would have been something that would have reminded him of a heavenly presence, something celestial other than this world. It would have been easy for him to hear the will of his Father in that setting of all settings. So as you reorder your lives to make more time for prayer, I encourage you to find a place to do that. Find a corner of your house and make it holy. Consecrate it with your ambition to know your Father, God the Father, more, to listen to God even as you ask God, and even as you fill God's ear with all the things that weigh heavy on your heart. If you do that already, then tell us about that experience. Let us know what it's like to find time with God. Encourage us to do the same. I'm a priest, friends, and I find it difficult still. When Jesus says he gets up early in the morning and finds time with his Father, I get up when the puppy gets up, and it's kind of her agenda now. The morning is sort of hers. But I can find other time, and so can you. Jesus carried the weight of salvation on his shoulders, a mighty project. Dare I say, his work and the tasks that lay ahead of him are greater than any of ours, and yet he found time to pray. The second point, because Mark is in his urgency, immediately at once, it seems only fitting that that prayer that Jesus gives, that silence and quiet that he finds with the Father, is interrupted when those early disciples, they are new to Jesus now, when they come to him. And what does Mark use as his verb to describe how they find him? Or what they say everyone in the village is doing. It's a peculiar word. Everyone is hunting for you. Hunting for you. Not searching, not looking for you. They are hunting for you. His work has just begun. His work has just begun there in Capernaum, and the town is transfixed. So too is everything around Capernaum. Everybody is enamored with the work of this young miracle worker who's come into the town. And so they seek him out. They interrupt his prayer. You've got to get back to work. They want you back in town. There's more to do. There's more to do. And what does Jesus say? Then let's leave town and go out into the villages. It's the coolest move Jesus could make. Put it in your context. You log into your inbox and you sit there and there is 3 follow-ups. Per my last email, have you seen my email? I just want to circle back with you and see if, and what Jesus does is close his laptop. And he says, well, I have many emails to answer. Therefore, I will leave and I will go out into the community and see what good I can do. It's a remarkably cool move, and one that I kind of am just sort of in awe of. Jesus is very aware of what his mission is. He knows his mission is to move into the other parts of the Galilee, to make the impact in their villages just as he has in Capernaum. Jesus is very aware of what his mission is. And when you are aware of what your mission is, you're also aware of what your mission is not. That's perhaps takeaway number 2. Capernaum would love for Jesus to stay there and become a permanent fixture in their community. They would love him to fix every little broken bone, every bruised knee. And when he has healed everything and everybody's all in good shape, they would love for him to begin to take on different kinds of handiwork. Jesus, my house is drafty. Do you think you could help me with this? Jesus, my fish is coming in a little, my net is a little not as full as I'd like. Could you help me with that? They would love for him to be a permanent fixture in this village and solve every one of their problems. He would be the most popular. But he knows that is not his calling. He knows how easy it would be for his mission to creep into that and maybe comfortable to set up shop there and just be the fixer of all things in Capernaum, the little mayor of the little city on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. He could do that. They would love it. But he knows that's not his ministry. He knows that's not his mission. And so he sets out to do the work that he knows he is called to do. What's on your to-do list? What do you need to accomplish? How many of you feel like your list of priorities has changed in the last 12 months? Me. How many of you have felt like your sense of mission has evolved a little bit this year? I certainly know mine has. And as it evolves, it's very easy to become a slave to your own to-do lists. It's very easy to become a slave to those things that are hunting after you. But take a page from Jesus's book and center yourself in what your ministry is and what your ministry is not, what your mission is and what your mission is not. And then get to the work that you're called to do. Jesus heals many people in his 3 years, but there are so many others that he does not heal. His miracle work is critical to his ministry of salvation, but it is not sufficient. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. If it was just 50 years of healing sick people in the Galilee and then Jesus died, guess what? Then there would be more sick people who come after him. But the sick people who are healed through Jesus's ministry point to Jesus's divinity. And that work, that message becomes the greater mission, to see that God loved us enough to come and be with us. That was the work of salvation. Jesus accomplished a great deal in 3 years, but there was so much more that he did not do. Let that be a comfort to you, friends, for all those projects and all those to-dos that went unfilled in the last year and perhaps continue to go unfilled. Jesus was able to recognize what he did not need to get done. And if he could do that, then you can too. The third idea and takeaway from Jesus's work in this short gospel we hear this morning. When he sat there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee early in the morning, he would have seen the moon bouncing off the waters, but he would have also seen a light in the distance. That light would be coming from the city of Tiberias. Tiberias is on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. It's there now, and it was there then. It would have been the largest city there in the Galilee region and the center of Roman authority. He would have known that the work he was doing was both incredibly holy, but also incredibly dangerous. Every time he healed someone, it was a snub to the authorities. And yet he continued to do it, even though he could see their lights on the other side of the pond. All that is to say that Jesus could have set up shop in Capernaum and been awfully comfortable answering the needs of that little town. But because he knew what his mission was and what it was not, he set out. And he made himself even more vulnerable by going around to all the villages near Tiberias and all the villages in the Galilee and even up into the Golan. Jesus does all of this. He puts himself out there as this tremendous act of courage. And that was the calling that he was given. So, if we make time for prayer, then we can hear God more clearly articulate our sense of purpose, our mission, our ministry, our mandate, the holy agenda that God has for you. And when you become aware of that, then you become aware of what it is not. And when you become aware of what it is not, you learn to let those things go. And you embrace a new sense of courage, a courage to go out and do the work that you are called to do, even as people are hunting for you, even as your to-do list is hunting after you. You set out with a spirit of purpose. And if you do that, if you pray, and prayer leads to mission, and mission leads to courage, then you will fly on the wings of an eagle. Amen.